News Talk on Samar News, your go-to podcast for the latest headlines and in-depth discussions. Join us as we unravel the stories that matter most, bringing you insightful commentary and expert analysis. Tune in for thought-provoking conversations that spark dialogue and inspire action. Stay connected with the news that shapes our world, only on News Talk on Samar News.
Today we're jumping into, well, a really quite unique situation over in the Philippines, specifically the recent mayoral election in Davao City.
Unique is definitely the word. The presumptive winner, Rodrigo Duterte, he's currently detained at The Hague.
By the International Criminal Court, the ICC.
Exactly. So our mission for you today, looking at news reports, statements from, election officials, family members, is to really try and understand how this whole thing is playing out. Legally, politically, and crucially, what it actually means for running Davao City day to day.
Right. It's unprecedented, really.
So let's start with those election results, because it wasn't just a win, it was huge, wasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. A landslide. The numbers are pretty stark. Duterte got, 662,630 votes? Compare that to Carlo Nograles, his main rival, who pulled in about 80,852.
Wow. That's a massive difference.
It really shows the kind of support he still has there in Davao City, despite everything.
Yeah, it does make you wonder about the dynamics at play, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. But okay, so despite him being detained at The Hague, the Commission on Elections, COMELEC, they went ahead and proclaimed him the winner. How did they justify that?
Well, according to their spokesperson, John Rex Lodienko, their stance was pretty clear. They said they have a legal duty, a duty to proclaim the candidate with the most votes. Unless, and this is the key part, unless they get a specific order telling them not to, either from the commission itself, like the main body, or from a court.
And they didn't get one.
Apparently not. So they argued they had to follow the standard procedure, proclaim the winner.
Which then led the COMELEC chairman, George Erwin Garcia, to say something interesting. He said the issue is more political rather than legal.
Mm-hmm.
What did you make of that? It almost sounds like admitting the rules don't quite fit.
Yeah, that struck me too. It's like acknowledging the elephant in the room. Right. Legally, they're following the letter, maybe, but politically, it's complicated. The winner is facing these incredibly serious international charges. Garcia's comments sort of suggest the legal box doesn't fully contain this situation.
And didn't Garcia also touch on the definition of conviction? Something about the election code.
Yes, exactly. He pointed out that there's really no precedent for this. The Omnibus Election Code talks about disqualification if someone's been convicted by a final judgment.
Okay.
But the question is, does an indictment or just being detained by an international court like the ICC, does that count? Does that meet the definition of conviction as intended by Philippine law?
Ah, I see. So does the law mean conviction in a Philippine court? Or could it include an international one?
Precisely. Garcia himself seemed unsure. He basically highlighted that ambiguity. Is the code meant only for domestic convictions, or does it stretch to cover international bodies? Usually, disqualification might be for, say, a corruption conviction here in the Philippines, this ICC situation.
Right.
It's just a whole different category.
So we're definitely in, uncharted legal waters here.
Yeah.
Trying to fit this weird peg into existing holes.
That sums it up pretty well.
Okay, let's shift slightly. It wasn't just Rodrigo Duterte winning. The whole family seemed to do very well in Davao.
Oh, absolutely. That's a really key part of the picture. It wasn't an isolated victory. His son, Sebastian Baez Duterte, he won the vice mayor race, also by a huge margin, 651,000 votes there.
Right.
Then his older son, Paulo Pulong Duterte, got reelected as representative for the 1st district.
Right.
And his grandson, Omar Duterte, he won the congressional seat in the 2nd district.
Wow, okay. A grandson, too.
And wait, there's more. Another relative, Rodrigo Duterte II, he actually topped the polls for city councilor in the 1st district. Plus, Isidro Ungab, who's a longtime ally, looks set to win again in the 3rd congressional district.
So it's a real consolidation of power for the family and their allies in Davao.
Dominant is the word. Across the board, really.
Which brings us back to the practical side. The mayor-elect is detained by the ICC. How does Davao City actually function? What happens now?
Well, the immediate fallback is the local government code. It lays out what happens. The expectation is that the vice mayor-elect, his son Baez, will step in as acting mayor.
Acting mayor.
That's standard procedure if a mayor is, temporarily unable to do the job. Sickness, travel.
But this isn't temporary sickness, is it? It's indefinite detention overseas.
Exactly. That's what makes it so different. An acting mayor scenario is usually short term. This could be, well, who knows how long?
And we heard his daughter, Vice President Sara Duterte, confirming they're actually discussing how he might take the oath of office from The Hague.
Yes, she mentioned that. She said they're talking to lawyers, both his ICC counsel and his legal team back in the Philippines, trying to figure out the logistics.
There's a deadline for that oath, right?
There is. It has to be taken sometime between the day after the proclamation and noon on June 30th.
How do you even administer an oath of office to someone detained internationally? It sounds incredibly complicated.
It certainly does. Legally, logistically, it raises a ton of questions.
Yeah, it really makes you pause and think about the practicalities. Can you effectively lead a major city from a detention center thousands of miles away? I mean, while facing charges of crimes against humanity, what does governance even look like then?
That is the massive unanswered question, isn't it? Being a mayor is usually very hands-on. You need to be there, making decisions, meeting people, dealing with local issues directly.
Right.
Having an acting mayor step in indefinitely, it raises real issues about accountability, effectiveness, just the basic running of the city. Can the city's needs truly be met under these very strange circumstances?
Okay, so let's dig back into those legal and political questions we touched on. We mentioned the conviction issue, but this whole situation just seems like it's begging for legal challenges, right?
Absolutely. You have a proclaimed winner detained by the ICC. The legal ground is definitely fertile for interpretation, for challenges. Opponents could argue, for instance, that even if it's not technically a conviction under Philippine law yet, the detention itself makes it impossible for him to actually perform the duties of the office.
So they could argue he's effectively disqualified by circumstance.
Potentially, yes, or that he can't genuinely assume the office. It's quite possible that Comelec, or maybe the courts, will have to weigh in again. They might need to clarify the rules or set new thresholds for what assuming office really means in such an extreme case.
And politically, I mean, what message does it send when a city votes overwhelmingly for someone facing these specific international charges?
Well, it's a powerful statement, isn't it? It really highlights the complex relationship between, say, local political sentiment and international legal norms. The landslide win suggests a very strong endorsement from his base in Davao, regardless of the ICC case.
So local support versus international justice systems.
Kind of. It raises big questions about how local communities weigh these international legal actions against their own political choices and priorities. It shows how local politics can seem almost detached from or even in conflict with these international frameworks sometimes.
It definitely sets up a very strange dynamic for governing Davao City. You've got the acting mayor, right?
Yeah. Right, running things day to day.
Well, the person actually elected mayor is detained internationally, facing these charges.
Precisely. The city is led by someone in an interim role, potentially long-term, while the mandate holder is absent and under a legal cloud. That inherently creates uncertainty, maybe even instability for the city's administration.
Okay, let's try and pull these threads together then. Our deep dive today, it's shown Rodrigo Duterte winning big in Davao City, a real landslide, even while detained at The Hague.
And Comelec proclaimed him based on, well, following their procedure because no specific order stopped them, which really throws a spotlight on that legal gray area. How does Philippine election law handle international detention? What is a conviction in this context?
And we also saw that it wasn't just him. The Duterte family brand remains incredibly strong in Davao, with multiple family members winning key posts.
Crucially, yes, that political dominance is clear.
But the immediate reality is practical. An absentee mayor means his son, Sebastian, steps up as acting mayor.
Right. Which creates this totally untested, unique governance situation for Davao City.
So that leads us, and you, with a final thought to chew on. What are the bigger implications here? When you have democratic processes, legal frameworks, and international politics colliding like this, in such an unprecedented way.
Yeah, how might this whole situation maybe force a rethink about the relationship between, say, national laws, international courts, and just the basics of governing a city in our connected world?
Definitely a lot to consider there. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
News Talk on Samar News, your go-to podcast for the latest headlines and in-depth discussions. Join us as we unravel the stories that matter most, bringing you insightful commentary and expert analysis. Tune in for thought-provoking conversations that spark dialogue and inspire action. Stay connected with the news that shapes our world, only on News Talk on Samar News.